Hey, what's up? This is Sully from Godsmack. Strap on those boots, baby, because you are now in the trenches of the war room with the one and only Mistress Carrie right here on the Mistress Carrie podcast.
What's up? This is Joe Rogan, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Her hair so lovely, pretty eyes.
Hey, this is Brent from Shinedown, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie. Hey, Carrie, go put your bra on, girl.
Hey, this is Steven Tyler, and you be listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
What's up? This is Aaron from Stain, and you're listening to Mistress Carrie.
Hi, everybody. This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters, and you're listening to the one, the only Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is David from the band Disturbed, and you're listening to the baddest bitch in Boston, Mistress Carrie.
Hi, Bruce Dickinson here from Iron Maiden. Yes, indeed, Miss Whiplash herself, Mistress Carrie, is here to unchain your brain.
Hi, this is Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. You're listening to Mistress Carrie.
This is Dennis Leary. You are listening to my favorite, Mistress Carrie.
Hey, this is Corey from Stone Sour, and you have the privilege of listening to Mistress Carrie.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah.
Hey, it's Mistress Carrie, reporting for duty from MCHQ for episode 256 of the Mistress Carrie podcast. My guest this week is Johnny Three Tears from Hollywood Undead, who I met years ago, but, well, you'll hear on this episode of the podcast, he may or may not remember. I got to catch up with him a couple of months ago in Vegas when I saw the band perform acoustic, and their new single, Hollywood Forever, is out on the radio, and the band is out on the road with Tech 9. They're going to be at the Strand in Providence, Rhode Island on May 7th, and at the College Street Music Hall in New Haven, Connecticut on March 8th. Tickets for both shows are on sale right now. The lineup is Hollywood Undead, Tech 9, Set It Off, and 0936. Johnny and I literally talked about everything from tattoos and getting old to drugs and being in jail to being a dad to Tom Brady, the Deftones, Lord of the Rings. It's amazing what you could talk about when an artist is stuck backstage on a show day, bored out of their minds and sober. Johnny Three Tears is such an interesting guy, and I'm so excited for you to get to know him. So allow me to introduce you to Johnny Three Tears from Hollywood Undead. Hello, Mr. Johnny Three Tears. How are you?
Good. Good to see you again.
It's good to see you, too. I just saw you a little while ago in Vegas.
Yes, that was fun.
You guys played a very eclectic acoustic set.
Mm-hmm. I
had no idea you had such diverse tastes in music.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of people don't realize, but most of us, I love hip-hop. All of us love hip-hop. Besides that, though, if you go on, most of us listen to like Tom Petty and like Creedence and a lot of like classic rock stuff, Marshall Tucker Band, and then like rap. And so there's not a lot of in between. So a lot of people are kind of weirded out by that.
Well, if Hollywood Undead doesn't work out, you guys could change your name, get like tuxedos, and you could make a lot of money as like a wedding band because the set was awesome.
Well, we used to have a cover band called Han Cholo. And we would play like there's these bars, and we would in LA. There's an area called the Valley. People know it's the San Fernando Valley, which is like where like Northridge and all. There's all these bars out there. We used to play cover shows out there and stuff for money, and like play people's parties and stuff. Because that was like the only way we could make a living and stuff. So that was actually something we did, but we just did it for alcohol. We weren't good enough to get paid. But I figured if we work hard enough, one day someone might pay us.
Well, right now, you're actually in like a back room in an arena right now on tour. So my assumption is you're getting paid today.
Yeah, but I want to be paid for covers, not this crap.
Oh. When I saw you guys in Vegas, it's so funny because people know me because they've come through Boston so many times.
Right.
And it's like seeing your school teacher at the supermarket. When people see me outside of Boston, they're like, why are you here?
It is odd. Well, you're very like, I've met a lot of people from radio, and you're one of the very distinct ones. And so it is kind of strange because you stick out in my mind a lot. So seeing someone outside of their natural habitat is like, wait a second, there's something going on here. So yeah, that is kind of the vibe.
Yeah, the purple hair has given me away for decades, and it's become cool and not cool like 8 times since I dyed it. Yeah,
but you're the OG.
I am the OG.
So now, fuck the rest.
I can't not dye it now because it's like my logo, so no one would recognize me.
No, exactly. No, you know what's funny is I remember I got a tattoo when I was like 13 years old. When I was like, I wasn't even in high school yet. From this kid that like in my neighborhood that had like his older brother's tattoo gun, and that was like really weird. Like only like gangbangers and like guys in maybe like the military had tattoos. You know what I mean? It wasn't very like it wasn't like certainly wasn't anybody who had them in my school and stuff. That was like risque. And then everybody started getting tattoos all the time. And then you kind of feel like I was upset by that because before, I was like everybody, I was in a lot of trouble for it and all this stuff. And then everybody had them. And I was like, this is a ripoff now, because everybody got them. Even my mother has tattoos now. I'm not kidding. It's disgusting.
When I got my first one, my mom cried and was like, what are you going to do? Be like a 40-year-old woman with purple hair and tattoos? Like, what are you going to do? And I just was like, yeah, I guess so. Like, I'm kind of committed, Mom. And now being a 40-year-old woman that doesn't have purple hair and tattoos, you're kind of the outlier now.
It's my brother, he's 36, and he was telling me he doesn't have any tattoos, and he plays music too. He was like, I was thinking to get a tattoo because he doesn't have any. I was like, don't, dude. You're the rebel now. Like that means something. Like I actually respect the fact that you don't. You never fell for it. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but you've held out this long. Why? You know what I mean? It's like that's pretty cool that you don't. I've always wondered what I would even look like without them. Now it's even hard for me to like picture. But I think people are gonna. By the time we're all 70, every 70, it's going to be normal for like senior citizen homes to be a bunch of people who look like they got out of prison. It's not going to be abnormal by any stretch. And whatever's left of my hair will be some color too.
My mom spent some time in an assisted living facility, and my sister and I used to joke because that generation was still kind of very conservative and followed by the rules and looked like old people. And we joked what it was going to be like when we were that old. Because when you go back and you watch like Golden Girls episodes, like old people, you hit a certain age. Like I look at a picture of my mom when she was 30 and it looks like she was dressing as an old person as a Halloween costume.
Yeah, oh yeah. They wanted to fit into that mold. Like they were looking forward to dying or something.
Yeah, and now, like, even people in their 70s don't look like the Golden Girls who, P.S., were in their late 40s and early 50s on television.
Isn't that wild?
It blows my mind.
I know. They weren't even senior citizens yet. I remember my grandpa, when they have these old people communities in Palm Springs, like where you have to be like 55 and over. The year he turned 55, they moved in. Like they couldn't wait to get into this place. And I was like, what is well, I didn't understand that, but I think that that attitude towards age has changed and I think it's healthy. Like a lot of people are now like, it sounds so lame to say it, but the 60 is the new blah, 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 that whole thing. But, it's normal for people to go to shows at 60 years old. We have fans that are in their 60s come to our meet and greets and shows all the time. And I think it's really refreshing because everybody would like resign themselves to like, oh, it's over at like 50. It's like, dude, 30 years of just what? Like golfing and eating, I don't know, TV dinners. I don't know what they did. It's miserable.
Early bird special. You had dinner at 4:30 and you were in bed by 8.
No, I'm doing coke till I'm fucking 100. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not really doing that because But you can't eat. I'll tell you, you can't eat an early bird if you're on coke. I promise you. That's hard to get down.
Well, when you first connected, you were like, "Wait, did we have dinner in Boston in like 2011?" And I was like, "Yeah, I think we did. Like outside of the House of Blues at the Foundation Room." And you were like, "Sorry, I didn't eat. I was on coke."
Yeah, dude, we used to go to a lot of dinners back there, and I never ate because I was always on drugs. So I'd always have to pretend I was like, "Oh no, I ate," or I'd put stuff in my mouth and like kind of swish it around for a while. So no one would get suspicious, So I'd put like a seed in my mouth or something, kind of.
You have a brother that's never gotten a tattoo. You are talking to probably the only person you've ever met in the music business that's never touched cocaine.
You should, dude. You should be proud of that because it causes a lot more trouble than it does good. That's another thing that along with the old people being more lively. Another thing I've noticed with young kids that I am very pleased about because when I was young, I was an absolute hellraiser. I graduated. I went to YA. I graduated. I got my GED when I was in jail. I was like a terror. And I'm very surprised that I've actually survived through it all. I have kids of my own and stuff. I'd be very fortunate. Kids are not drinking like they used to. They're not doing drugs like they used to. Sobriety is actually like very common amongst young people. And there was a time I'd be like, oh, that's stupid or whatever, who knows what my attitude would be. But I'm very happy about it because it causes far more problems than anything else and then it solves. And I'm really happy because I would say about half the kids we meet are like, oh, I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I don't do any of that stuff. When that was very, very rare when I was young. Like everybody was just raging. So I'm very happy with that. And I think kids are much smarter than we were when I was young. You know what I mean? They're not doing this as ridiculous of the stuff as we were doing. So
I mean, look, I wasn't an angel, but by the time, like everybody when I grew up was like drinking in the woods and smoking pot. And when I started working in the music business, I saw people on coke and they looked so stupid. And
that's why you got to join them.
And I'm too cheap. I was like, I know as a girl being around rock bands that I could probably get free coke, but I just was like, I never had any problem staying up. So I would just stay up late with everybody and I didn't need to do coke. And then when I was on the air, I was always up late on the air and then had to drive home. And I never wanted to be that sloppy, like fucked up girl backstage. Yeah. Because I was trying to be taken seriously in the business. And that girl that got painted as the druggy groupie girl didn't get to keep her career very long. And so for me, I just was like, I don't want to get into it. So,
well, clearly you made the right decision. And you're totally right. I grew up in Hollywood. So for me, it was it was ever present from when I was little. It had nothing even outside of the music stuff. It was just everywhere. So it was just kind of like part of life, I think, when I was young. Drugs were, it was Hollywood in the 80s and 90s. So it was like, that was what people did. Just regular people too, not just in the music business and stuff. Then when we got in the music business, I just had more money so I could afford it. But yeah, no, it's trouble. And then you made the right decision. Anybody, I always tell kids, because I know a lot of people glamorize that stuff. I'll be the first to tell them, like, it's not worth it. I've been to rehab 4 times. I've been into jail. God no, it's a torrent of trouble. And it doesn't give you anything good. Nothing good comes from it. Maybe some good songs, but you can write the songs without the drugs.
Well, I think there's a genetic component to it too. And I'm fortunate enough where that gene doesn't seem to be very prevalent in my family.
That is good. And you're absolutely right. I'm Irish, and I don't know if that's all true, but all of my parents, grandparents, they're all alcoholics and stuff. They all died with a bottle. They're all nuts. So hopefully I'm the breaker. And that's the other thing, I have kids, they watch me and stuff. One time I fell down the stairs, not bad, but I slid down them, like, because I had socks on. And my kid and all her friends were like laughing. And I was like, and they knew I was drunk. They had to have known. And I was like, this is bad, because they're going to get old enough where they think they're going to, be like, that's just normal stuff, So I kind of was like, there is a point where it's like, dude, enough's enough.
You seem like you won't be offended by this question when I ask it. I hear so many stories of musicians that obviously get sober and they continue on with their careers. How is it different for you, the day-to-day stuff? Because when we first started talking, you were like, I'm backstage at a show. I'm not doing anything till 9 o'clock. I'm bored as hell right now. How is it for you continuing as a professional musician and being sober?
For me, it's about finding things to do with your time. Boredom is probably the biggest side effect of switching from one lifestyle to another. It sounds corny, but I work out and I do things like that. But I try and be productive. Like, I normally just play guitar or whatever when we play live, but I do like drill guitar stuff, and I write more and I read, and I just try and stay as busy as possible. And I'm around people who drink and do stuff all the time too. So I still have, my entertainment and stuff. I'm not like closeted away somewhere. So it's not like some people, really have they have to get away from it all and stuff. I've never had that issue. I think it's hilarious most of the time. So, that much doesn't change, but it's really just about staying busy and finding a solution to what you do with your time, because you're not like sleeping all day. Because that was kind of, was always being up till, 7 or 8 in the morning, sleeping all day and then staying up all night again. And, it's just kind of switching it up and figuring out what to do with your time and maintaining like a level of productivity where you're not like the voices start going like, okay, I'm bored, give me some drugs or whatever.
Well, the good thing is you wake up in a different place every day. And as someone who loves to travel, you can go out and enjoy the cities that you're actually performing in now.
Yeah, what's funny is we talked about that before. We went to Europe maybe 13 or 14 times before I remember going there. I'm not even kidding. Like the first time I went out in like London or Paris or something, remember doing it. I was already like 33, and the first time I went there, I was like 21. So I don't remember any of those. That time period is like gone, which is like wild to think about. So no, and I definitely try and enjoy those little things. And even like shows, it's like, there's a part of it, yeah, you miss being like all jacked up for them, but there's also more of a connection when you play and you're like coherent through it all. And even though when you're buzzed, you probably think you sound better, you probably don't. Like, you're probably better sober. It's not as fun in your brain, but you probably are more on key and things like that. So it's a trade-off, and it all, like all good things in life, there's good and bad to it. And then I have like a good support system. Like I'll hit up Jacoby from Papa Roach. I know a lot of dudes who don't drink, who I kind of asked about that stuff before I was like, is this like doable? Because it seemed not so doable, So it's just a lifestyle change. And, anybody, if I can do it, I know you hear that a million times, anybody can do it. But, that's the way I kind of look at it. And it's just one Tech. We're on tour with Tech 9, who's 5 years sober. And he was a nut job just like me. And so you have two nut jobs who aren't nut jobs anymore, or just expressing it differently. So it works.
I just talked to the guys from Barry Tomorrow, and we were talking about how Jacoby, now that he's sober, like he's literally aging in reverse. He's like Benjamin Button. He sounds better. He's on top of his game. 25 years later, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, they're like the best live band you'll ever see. I say that. People ask me all the time what the best live band I've seen. I'm like, probably Papa Roach. We've toured with them a million times, and they're one of the few bands. We've played hundreds of shows with these guys, and I'd still go out and watch them and be like, man, that's a good bleeping band. They're just all, and it's, a large part due to that energy he has. And yeah, that's impossible to maintain if you're drinking a fifth of vodka every night and doing whatever else. So it's like, if you want to have a long career in radio or in anything else, or if you want to have a long marriage or do anything, you're probably gonna have to get rid of all that stuff eventually. There's a time and a place, but Jacoby is just that guy doesn't need anything anyway. That guy's got more life in him than I did when I was on an 8-ball, so he doesn't need anything.
Well, I mean, to use a sports analogy, you being from LA, me being from Boston, if you want to be Tom Brady, you got to eat the avocado ice cream. You got to do it.
Yeah. No, exactly. If you want it that bad, and I think Jacoby knows that. Dude, he'd go wake up and he'd run like 8 miles every morning. That guy, he didn't like running 8 miles. I'm sure I wouldn't, but he did it because that's how you have the cardiovascular ability to go play a show for an hour and a half and have the pipes to do it. So if you want it bad enough, there are sacrifices you have to make. You can't just get up and do that 5 nights a week. I certainly can't. So for him to be able to do it, that's what you got to do. Or like you said, Tom Brady, and Tom still looks like he's 30.
Yeah, Benjamin Button. It's unbelievable.
Bitch. I know. You can't help but love that guy, too. It really breaks my heart how likable he is.
Yeah, that era, man, all those victory parades, that was a fun time to be on the radio in Boston. I'm not going to lie.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, now you got the Celtics won last year, right?
Yeah, and they're on a tear right now.
The Red Sox are on the up and up.
Yeah.
By all outward signs, they made some really good signings this year. I love baseball, so I've been watching that, and they look like they're turning it around.
Have you been to a game at Fenway ever?
Yeah, I went. We played the House of Blues like 4 or 5 years ago, and there was a game that day, and we were able to finally go, which was really nice. Because I had never, obviously that and Wrigley are probably the most famous stadiums. The old Yankee Stadium's gone, so those are two that I haven't been to Wrigley. I've never been able to, so that's probably Fenway's Fenway, so I would put it above all else. And that was really special. That was really cool.
Where have you gone on tour that you absolutely love that maybe you were surprised by? Just a city that you were like, this is awesome.
I love like Cleveland, Milwaukee. There's a lot of cities in middle America, what they call like flyover country, and like, because obviously, you know, you go to New York or Boston or Chicago and they have their obvious charms, but people know them. But like Cleveland, for instance, people talk like, you know, it's no man's land. I thought I've gone to Indians games. We got in a huge brawl at an Indians game, like we were out with 10 years and some other. We got in this huge fight. It was like the best night of my life. It was fun. With all these guys from Cleveland, it was fun. Cleveland's fun as can be. And I know that, you know, they got some crime issues, but every urban center does. But, you know, there's a lot of these cities that get crapped on, like Omaha, Nebraska. I think Omaha is cool. I think every place has its good things and its bad things about it. Like LA, everybody hates LA, and I totally understand why. But I know the things about LA that are good about it, and those people probably don't. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I would say, you know, those little places in Middle America, even like Appalachia, like I'll go up to the mountains sometimes. And yeah, there's real like fentanyl issues and drug issues and stuff, but there's also some places up there, so these little villages that are just like unbelievably cool too. So, you know, it's just all about, you're going to find what you're looking for anywhere you go. If you're looking for something cool, you're going to find it. If you're looking for something bad, you're going to find that too.
Every time I go to LA, it seems morbid, but I don't think it is. I'm the one that always goes to all the cemeteries. I want to go and see the graves of the musicians I love.
Yeah.
And like
Did you ever go to Forest Lawn?
Yes.
Okay, where I grew up in Glassell Park, which is right. It's right up. So my house literally went up against the wall. My backyard went to the wall of Forest Lawn Cemetery. Forest Lawn's huge. It runs through Burbank. It runs through.
That's
Toluca
where
Lake.
Dio and Lemmy are, right?
Yeah. Yes. So I grew up literally. My backyard ran to the wall. So I was like always terrified of that, because if you looked out my backyard, it went to that wall. In Glassell Park is right next to like Elysian Park, which is right next to Dodger Stadium, actually, which is where I grew up going to. But I grew up right there. So, yeah, that cemetery, we used to go do a lot of stuff we probably shouldn't have done in cemeteries. Nothing gross, but, you know, disrespect. We would go drink in there and stuff. Like, I guess that's normal.
Yeah, everybody drinks in cemeteries. We do that here, too.
Okay. Because
I was like, cemeteries here are way older.
You know, dude, that's one of the things I love about the East Coast. And I know, because, you know, the oldest house in LA is probably like 100 years old. That's like, whoa. So going out there and seeing the old, Boston in particular, like with I don't know if this stuff is corny to you guys, but I love, like, we go see the Paul Revere house. And
this week is the 250th anniversary of the ride.
Oh, cool. Yeah. No, I love his. So we go and do that stuff when we're out there, and I love that stuff. And we went out there once, and it was winter, and it was snowing. We did the Paul Revere house and like a whole street tour, and it's just Boston's awesome, like especially during the winter. It's awesome all the time, but during the winter it was like snowy, and we did this like little tour thing. It's great because, you know, it's American history, but you don't get that in LA. That's one thing it absolutely
Yeah, you definitely don't get snow in LA. That's for sure. You can tell you're a tourist because you're like,
old stuff.
It's like, it was snowing and it was so nice. Meanwhile, the Bostonians are like, fuck my life. When is spring coming?
I know. For us, it's cool. Yeah. Like when we were just in Canada, and it was like April, in the middle of April. So they were all pissed off it was snowing, and it's us and Tech 9, and we're just like, this is awesome. Because, you know, we're not used to that.
Last week, we got 6 inches of snow, and then 2 days later, it was almost 70 degrees. And we're like, is Mother Nature on drugs right now? Can we just stop?
Yeah, she's doing the coke I don't do anymore.
Well, listen, I will offer it up right now because I take all the bands when they come through town. The Mistress Carrie Tour of Boston is a thing.
Really?
Oh,
I will absolutely take you up on that.
I'll come pick you up. I'll take you to all the little spots only the locals know.
Oh, that's what it's all about.
I'll take you to have tea where they threw the tea in the harbor. Take you to the Constitution. Yeah. I'll take you to the bar. You can have a Coke where they planned the revolution. Like all of that nerdy stuff. Growing up here, you don't appreciate it when you're young.
Of course.
But as I've gotten older, especially because I have so many friends that are from other places, and when they come here, they're like, we need to have clam chowder. We need to go have lobster rolls. I want to go and see all of the nerdy history stuff. And the more I do it, people are like, I'm so sorry. Like, you must get sick of doing it. But it's like if somebody were to come to LA and go, hey, show me around and take me to your favorite places, there's a certain pride about showing off your hometown.
Yes. I used to always take people to the place where I was born and all this stuff because people are curious. And you're totally right. I never got sick of it. I'd be like, I always show them Dodger Stadium or the observatory, and I'd be like, oh, you got to see this. And you're right. Or like when you show them your favorite place, like people love Mexican food, come in LA. So I'd take them to the best place that I thought, and I'd be like, what do you think? You know, it's exciting.
Yeah.
And if they appreciate it.
I grew up outside of Boston in the suburbs, so I tell people I'm from Boston because if I told them I'm from Leominster, they would be like, I don't even know where the hell you're talking about.
Right.
But my hometown is like 45 minutes outside of Boston, and it claims two things. The birthplace of Johnny Appleseed.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's also where those pink plastic lawn flamingos from the 50s came from. Like, the factory that made them was in my hometown. So when they became all the rage in the 50s, that's the only reason anybody knew where Leominster was, because if you looked on those plastic lawn flamingos, they came from my hometown. That's all we have. But 45 minutes east is Boston. And there's way more than pink lawn flamingos there.
Hey, there's nothing to be ashamed of. Those flamingos are great.
Everybody in my town has them on their front lawns. And they have them like painted in the crosswalks. Like it's the claim to fame.
That's their thing. Yeah. Well, some places don't have a thing.
Yeah.
You got a thing.
They have Johnny Appleseed, plastic lawn flamingos, and Mistress
And Johnny
Carrie.
Appleseed is a huge celebrity.
Yeah. Says the guy that grew up outside of Forest Lawn Cemetery, where every famous person ever is buried.
You know what's funny is that's all they do though. They die there. That no one I grew up in Hollywood, and one of the biggest misnomers with Hollywood is that famous people live there. Most of them don't. You know, some of them live in the Hollywood Hills, but most of these guys don't want anything to do with it. People go to Hollywood thinking they're gonna drive down Hollywood Boulevard or something and see Brad Pitt hanging out. It's ridiculous. It's like, dude, none of these guys want to. They'll move to the mountains and shit. You know what I mean? None of these guys want to hang out. I actually live in Nashville now, and there's more celebrities there than I ever were in Hollywood because they don't want to pay taxes to California, and then they get their privacy or whatever they want. You know what I mean? But I never saw, growing up in Hollywood, you never saw any of these people. And then the other thing is, California's taxes are so bad. All the movie production left. All the movies are filmed in Atlanta now, so none of them are filming there. So I felt bad for all these people that go get these maps and stuff and go walking around Hollywood. I was like, these poor bastards. They have no idea. I'm probably the coolest thing they're going to see, and that's pathetic.
Even Massachusetts has a sound studio now.
Oh yeah,
because they give tax breaks to the movies, so they film movies here all the time.
Yeah, dude, Canada is the hot. My favorite show growing up was The X-Files, and I found out they shot the whole damn thing in Vancouver. It wasn't even shot in America. I was like, what? So, California, it's just nothing's going on there, really. None of the stuff you'd think anyway.
Up until a few years ago, I thought Nashville was belt buckles and longhorn cattle walking, because I'm a Boston kid, right? So I think it's cows downtown, and I went to Nashville and was like, oh wait, no, this city's just about music. Everywhere it's just music, and I can't believe the number of bands I talked to that have moved there, that are making records there. It's unbelievable,
dude. Everybody I know, pretty much, I get a call or a text once a week. Hey, what's it like there? Hey, where should I move? Hey, blah blah blah. And then, I have so many friends now that live there. It's just the music industry is centered there. Our labels is there. It's our label moved there from LA 2 years ago. The satellite office in Nashville is bigger than the one they have in Los Angeles now. Granted, back when we signed in 2005 to Interscope, it was still centered in LA, but all that stuff has changed. And Nashville's kind of the mecca. We record records there now. In most bands, I mean, very few of them are. It just makes more sense. And then, for us, I tour. I think a lot of it has to do too is bands get older and they start having kids and stuff. No one wants to. Raising your kids in LA is a fucking pain, or at least that I grew up in LA and I just know that firsthand. So when I started having kids, I was like, this isn't, and I'm gone all the time. I don't want my kids hanging out in Hollywood like I did because I turned into a wreck. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go try and take them to the boondocks. But Nashville's full of, Nashville's like a party city now. They call it Nash Vegas. I'm like, oh great. There's more trouble than I thought.
There's a lot of people, a lot of rock bands living in the suburbs of Vegas too, in these neighborhoods and they never go down to the Strip. It's almost like it's inconsequential that they're outside of Vegas.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people just want like their quiet time and stuff like that. I don't think, when we were young, we lived in Hollywood all the way. I lived in Hollywood all the way till I moved 5 years ago. So for the majority of my career, I stayed in Hollywood. And we would still go out and raise hell and stuff like that. But eventually it just gets old. And, Hollywood, the people who lived there and grew up there were always the outsiders. There was always more expats than us. So we weren't like, it wasn't like, we never had the this is our city kind of thing. Like growing up in Boston, I'm sure you're like, hey, this is our town.
This is our town, yeah.
Yeah. We were always smaller in number living there than the people who had come there from other places. So although we were protective and there was like that aspect to it, as time went on, we lost that. You know what I mean? It stopped feeling like home. It's like, dude, this place is 99% people from Nebraska or Florida or wherever else. In the entertainment industry and stuff like that. So it kind of lost the vibe of, it didn't feel like home in the same sense. So at that point I was like, you know what? It was kind of like a losing battle. So I was just like, I'm out of here. None of my neighbors, no one I lived with,
feel like that now.
Now they hate me. What's funny is they hate people from California.
Yes.
Most people won't even tell you. And they got mad at me. I was like, well, let me tell you something. We were the originals. California was the first state to get screwed by everybody. When I was a kid, you could be a plumber in California and own a house because it was like normal. But then everybody from everywhere moved to California and priced every Californian out. So they had to leave. So it's all of you, other people's fault. So now we're screwing everybody back. But I had this lady move across the street from me and she came over and just to introduce herself. She's like, oh, hi. I forget her name. And I was like, oh, hi, blah, blah, blah. She's like, oh, I'm moving. We moved from, and I was like, where? She's like, oh, I don't want to say. And I was like, it's okay. She's like, I moved from San Diego. And I was like, yeah, I'm from LA too. She's like, oh, okay. Because she was nervous just to tell me she had moved from California because there's so much stigma.
Yeah.
They'll slash your tires in some places
if
you got California plates. They don't want you out there.
That's why
you gotta be on the lookout.
It cracks me up when they come here, like the tourists come here and they're like, these people from Boston are assholes. And it's like, when you go home, you're assholes to us.
Yeah.
At least we're nice enough to say it to your face and not, behind your back.
Behind your back?
Yeah, at least we'll call you an asshole to your face.
That is courteous, at least.
I think it's nicer.
It's nicer than talking behind your back.
Than the bless your heart thing.
That's the East Coast thing. They're much more forward about the shit talking. In California, it's all the backstabbing stuff.
Yeah. The analogy I heard that I thought was great is there's a difference between being nice and kind. Being nice is bless your heart. Oh, isn't that nice?
Phony.
Yeah. So if that person sees someone on the side of the road with a flat tire, they'll go, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you. And then they'll leave. The Bostonian will pull over, motherfuck you the whole time, and change your tire. Exactly.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%.
Yeah, exactly.
It's totally true.
I got to talk to you about music because obviously you're growing up in LA and there is just this melting pot of stuff. I have a theory about music. There's two phases of your upbringing. There's the passive soundtrack to your childhood. The stuff that you have to listen to because your parents put it on in the car. And then you hear something, whether it be a band, a song, an album, and you make the conscious decision for the first time to go, I like that. And then everything after that is different.
Yes.
So what was the soundtrack to your childhood? And then what was it that changed everything for you?
Well, I'll tell you. So my dad, when I was growing up, we didn't have any money. So we didn't have a TV and stuff or very little, but my dad did have one thing, which was a record collection from when he was young. So that's all we had. That and books were my two forms of entertainment. And I know because he told, I loved Neil Young. That was my favorite when I grew up. So I would put his headphones on and I would go to sleep to Neil Young. I used to love Down by the River and Old Man and that stuff. And Creedence was always my favorite band growing up. Neil Young. So it was all the stuff he grew up on because that's all I had really access to. The first group I remember going, dude, what is this? Is Wu-Tang Clan, because it was 1993 and it was when I first started going to school And that was like all the rage. It was when New York hip hop started getting big on the West Coast. And that was like the peak West Coast versus East Coast thing. Although Wu-Tang wasn't really involved in that. That was more the Tupac versus Biggie stuff.
Yeah.
But Wu-Tang was so different, you know what I mean? Because the group vibe of the rap, and I was like, damn, that's really good. And then rock-wise, it was Deftones was the first band that was new, that I was like, whoa, the grunge stuff I liked, but I was not like, it didn't like make me go, oh my God, or anything. But Deftones was the first band that I felt like I owned. That was the first concert I ever went to at the Palace in Hollywood, actually. You know what's funny is I got into Deftones when they were like peak White Pony days.
Oh, such a great record.
It is. And they were playing 1,500 seaters. Now they're playing Bridgestone Arena and Madison Square Garden. It blows my fucking mind. I'm like, dude, these guys are doing, which is beautiful because, like, I love that kids. I really worry about kids in like the TikTok era because the music they listen to. And knowing that the Deftones are selling 10 times as many tickets as they did when I'm a kid makes my heart very warm because then it makes you go, okay, the kids are okay. Everything's going to be all right. Because I do worry about them listening to this trash stuff that doesn't have any real emotion or anything.
Well, and it's disposable. It's like it's the hottest thing for 5 minutes and then it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. It means nothing. You know, Deftones, the beauty of Deftones is the magic is the emotion behind it all. And the fact that that's connecting to them makes me feel very good. But Deftones was the first rock band I really connected with. Wu-Tang was hip hop. And then, you know, everything kind of went from there. But definitely classic rock in that world is what I grew up listening to.
When I was on the air in Boston doing nights, I went out to LA. I had a friend working at Mates, like the recording studio, and like.
Oh, I know Bobby really well. The dude who runs Mates and stuff.
So I had
homie.
a buddy that worked there, and we used to call him Johnny Hollywood, and he used to call me with rock gossip in Boston because he was just surrounded by all the rock bands all the time. So I went out on a vacation for like a week and I went to see him at Mates and I'm just hanging out and he's like, look, you can't say anything to anybody about who's here or whatever. Like, you know, don't get me in trouble. And I'm out in the parking lot and all of a sudden I see Chi Cheng walk out of one of the rooms.
Yeah.
And I knew Chi because the Deftones would come through Boston all the time. And so I go over and I say hi to him and he's just outside smoking. And then all of a sudden, I'll never forget it, the door opens to like the rehearsal/recording room and Maynard James Keenan walked out.
Yeah.
In a golf shirt and jeans and penny loafers. I will never, God strike me dead, this is true. Went and got into a Jeep Wrangler and drove away. And I'm like, not what I expected from Maynard James Keenan, right?
Right.
So I'm standing there talking to Chi. And again, he was like, why are you in LA? Like, you're from Boston. And I was like, I know, I'm on vacation. So we're standing there. 10, 15 minutes later, Maynard comes back in the Jeep with 2 giant bags of Kentucky Fried Chicken and walks back into the room. And I just look at Chi and I go, what's it like to have Maynard go and get you KFC? And he goes, it's pretty badass. He turned around and left. They were riding passenger.
No kidding?
Yes. And I'm standing outside the door going, oh. Yeah.
Eating KFC. They had the greasy lips while they wrote Passenger, huh?
Yeah, and I love that record so much.
It's so good.
The fact
that song, dude, man.
It's so good.
No, it's a masterpiece.
So do musicians run in the family for you?
My brother and I are both, my brother's a musician, I'm a musician. My parents, no. They are not musicians. They're idiots, in fact. So no. They had good taste in music. They listen to good music and stuff. So that's good. But no, just me and him. But they at least made it, you know, available and stuff. My brother's, he's like a remarkable guitarist and stuff like that. And we got lucky in that sense. And we didn't have anything else to do, really. So that's the one advantage of growing up poor is you have to figure out stuff to do with your time. And that's how music came about, is like, hey, man, if you have to figure out what to do with your time. No one's going to be like, there was no like, hey, let's go to you're going to baseball practice or time to watch a movie. There was none of that. So music became kind of the thing, you know what I mean? It was always kind of our escape route and stuff. So both of us became heavily invested in that. And that was always like, you know, I got in trouble a lot when I was a kid. And my plan was always actually well, I guess this is more like just in case thing, as I was wanting to be in the military, but I got a felony when I was like 16, and you can't be a cop and you can't join the military, even if you're a minor when it happens. So I remember when I was like after that, I was like, well, I can't be in the military now. And that was the only thing I had going. I knew I couldn't go to college or anything. So music was it. That was it. That's when I really knew. I was like, okay, that was my only option. So that was when I really dedicated myself fully to like that being my thing. But yeah, it's been good so far. So I can't complain. It's been wild, but it's been good.
They say that musical ability is the same part of the brain as language and math. Are you good at those things too?
Well, I don't want to. I hate saying that kind of stuff because it makes you sound egotistical. But I do. I read very often. I like to read a lot. I am good at math. In fact, I get made fun of fairly regularly by the other guys in my band because all I do is read. That is not a myth. I love the Russians. I like Dostoevsky and Tolstoy and stuff. So I am considered a nerd. Especially, I have like a lot of fondness for Tolstoy, who a lot of people don't like the Russians or like more obscure writers, I would say, by today's standards. These guys were very famous at one point in the literary world. But by today, most people read like Stephen King and J.K. Rowling and like,
hey, don't
modern
sass
writers.
on Stephen King. He's a local guy up here in New England.
I like Stephen King. But, by like James Patterson, these more like classic literature or whatever you would group into that.
Yeah.
People don't read like they used to. That was like the only form of entertainment for a long time. That's what I grew up reading. So like a lot of people aren't familiar with that stuff. I also love like Tolkien and stuff like that. Not the movies, but like Lord of the Rings books. I have Tolkien tattoo and those things. So, I guess those are considered nerdy. In fact, I'll tell you, there was a guy in my band, his brother used to come on tour with us, and I used to do a lot of cocaine, and I would make him look up Lord of the Rings trivia, like obscure Lord of the Rings trivia questions while I was on cocaine and ask me questions. And he would sit there and he didn't do drugs or drink, and he would be like, okay, what did Morgoth do in the Second Age of blah, 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 blah. And I would answer them. And I would force him to do these trivia questions. He would want to go to bed. He'd be like, okay, that's enough. I would force him, no, it's not bedtime yet. And I would force him to do Lord of the Rings trivia till like 4 a.m. while I was doing drugs. Because that's what you do.
My
right?
sister literally last week just got home from a full-blown Lord of the Rings nerd trip to New Zealand where they filmed all the videos. She went with 2 nerd friends and went to all the sets where they filmed all the movies.
Awesome.
Because she loves that stuff too. Whatever that gene is, I didn't get it.
Well, those movies, just so you know, those movies are very well made, but they're a travesty. They're not the stories. If you really love the stories, the books, you can't go, oh, those movies are great, because they betray the story themselves in a lot of ways. They're very well made. I'm not mocking them because I could never do that. Like bringing something together, that epic and like scope and making something like that. So I'm not saying, oh, you do it better. I know I could never do anything like that. But they changed the story and they changed some of the characters, and it's kind of unforgivable to a true fan of those books, and it bothers me. Although I would love to go to New Zealand and see those sets because it is beautiful, and then the scope of those movies is very admirable what they were able to pull off and stuff.
The books are never as good. It doesn't matter. Like the movies are never as good. It doesn't matter what the movie is. It always bastardizes the book.
But he made there's a character called Elrond in the book, and he's like a godlike figure, and they turned him in like an asshole in the movie, and it's like, dude, why? There was no purpose behind it. They made him like an antagonist. There was like characters that got changed for no reason, and that's what bugged me. And it betrays the story. And if you're a nerd like me who does cocaine and does Lord of the Rings trivia, this is not okay. This is not okay. I was upset.
You and Stephen Colbert need to sit down and go toe for toe because
I'll give Colbert. I'm not a big Colbert fan. His show's too wacky for me now. He used to be funny, but I will give him his due credit with his Lord of the Rings knowledge. He knows the backstory, the Silmarillion, and the stuff that goes beyond the scope of just the Lord of the Rings trilogy. There's a lot of backstory stuff in a book called the Silmarillion that talks about things that happened prior to the Third Age where those books take place. And he knows the stuff. Good for you, Stephen. Is he from Boston?
I don't think Conan O'Brien is from Boston.
Conan. I love Conan. Conan's the man.
Yeah.
He was the one I always liked.
Yeah, because there's something about Boston and stand-up comics. A ton of them are from here.
Yeah, Bill Burr, obviously. He's a big one.
Yeah, there's just a ton of them. That Dennis Leary, Lenny Clark.
Yeah, Leary.
Jesus, Stephen Wright. Like, it just goes back. And it's I guess it goes back to that ball-busting cynicism of the city. It's just, you go to like a comedy club around here on a Tuesday night and you're going to see a guy that's hilarious.
Yeah, I think pretty much all of them come from either New York or Boston. You don't see guys coming out of like, I don't know, L.A. really.
Even Joe Rogan's from Boston. Like, all of them are from
here. You're right. Wow, I never even thought of that. It's a very much. Yeah, I guess people are too like laid back in LA to be stand-up comics. They don't like, you know what I mean? Because obviously people from Boston have a real like bone to pick with society in general.
Well, they have a bone to pick with everyone.
Yeah, or like the Larry David New York types who just have an issue with everything. That New York vibe. That's where all comedy kind of stems from. Is you guys?
Well, it's the older brother, younger brother thing. We're the younger brother that's just annoyed that our older brother gets everything. That's why we hate the sports teams, because we're always the underdog. I try to explain it to people, and it's like, we're 4 hours from New York, but it's just like being that younger brother that grows up hearing about how awesome your big brother is. And you just can't wait till the one day that you're like an inch taller than him where you can knock him out with one punch, and every once in a while it happens.
Well, the Celtics have always been better than the Knicks.
Yeah.
You have that. New England's obviously always been better than the Giants and the Jets.
Well,
at least in recent memory.
Got us a couple times in the Super Bowl that we're not going to talk about.
But let's say that though, if you compare the track record of the teams overall, you know what I mean. Obviously, the dynasty.
Yeah.
You guys have that. Baseball, I get it. The Yankees are the Yankees.
Yeah.
But, Boston's gotten them back. I like Boston. I've always liked Boston. I think if you go outside of anywhere of New York, like I remember when Boston, what was it, 2004 when you guys finally beat them?
Yes, it was so
We all watched in LA, we were watching that like the Dodgers were in the series, and everybody was going for Boston. Like people were going ape shit in LA when Boston won because it was such a big deal. So
I was cheering for LA when they won last year. Like, I felt dirty doing it, but I was happy they won.
Yeah, this whole, I'm one of these guys because, the LA is kind of like the Yankees, the money stuff. I don't like the way baseball is turning into this whoever has the most money type thing. And that was kind of why everybody always disliked the Yankees. It was just buying whoever, paying for chance. And I get it. You have the most money. You should use it. But I feel like baseball needs a salary cap. At some point, it has to happen because it's ridiculous when Cleveland's spending $80 million and the Dodgers or the Yankees or these other teams are spending $350. It's like, it's not going to be competitive.
They're moving the A's to Vegas because they just couldn't be competitive in Oakland anymore.
Yeah. I mean, we'll do the Brewers, the Indians, Tampa. These guys are never going to have the same amount of money the Red Sox or the Yankees or the Cubs are going to have. It's just never going to happen because the TV market. And I don't like seeing that because even when the Dodgers won last year, I obviously was very pleased because it was the Yankees and the Dodgers who were both kind of on that same page. But the track to get there is not fair. It's not the same road they're traveling as these other teams, and it kind of cheapens the whole thing. I really think there should be a salary cap in baseball. And then after they win the series, they go spend another like $100 million to get a bunch of other people. It's like, dude, I like it, but I really don't like it at the same time because then it's just like players used to stay on the same team for their whole careers, and it was like it meant something. And now it's just whoever has the most money gets the best player. The player doesn't care. The team doesn't care. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't even buy jerseys anymore because they're there for 2 years and they leave.
That's what happens with me. I'm the curse. I buy the jersey and the guy leaves like a week later. I can't.
The only jersey I have is Kershaw because he's the only person who's been there for his whole career. He's been there as for 20 years or whatever. He's the only guy who spent his whole career there since I've been a kid. And he barely even plays anymore. But everybody else has just come and gone and comes and goes. And, that's just the way it works now. They get traded all the time, and
there's a great docuseries on HBO that I've been watching. It's called Celtic City, and it goes into the LA rivalry a lot because it goes all the way back to the start of the NBA and really painstakingly goes through the Boston LA thing. So if you're bored on tour and you're looking for something,
is it like the Showtime days, Showtime Lakers and Larry Bird days?
Oh, it goes through every era.
Every era.
Every era from the very beginning. And there's a new episode that comes out every Monday. The last episode that I watched was last week's, and it was when Bird retired. And so, but it goes all the way back to the very, very beginning of the league and goes through and interviews the Lakers and Magic and all of those guys. If you like basketball, especially the Boston-LA rivalry, you'll think it's really cool. And
I love Larry Bird.
how could you not love him?
He was just such a skinny, like him, and I loved Reggie Miller too, for those, because they're just so gangly, but they're always down to scrap, and like, you know what I mean? They overcame their like physical deficiencies, because they weren't like big, strong guys, especially Reggie Miller. He was like a gangly, like.
That's why Boston loved him, because they were scrappy.
Yeah, they're just scrappy dudes who would just fight anybody and play, and they weren't intimidated by anybody. They weren't like physically gifted necessarily. They just play. Yeah, I miss that era of basketball in general. It's just, tough days. Basketball is a lot different today. There's things I like about basketball today, but that era was. I hate getting into the era conversation because that's so ever present now.
Yeah.
But I liked it more.
That's why I was bummed that Elon changed the Twitter logo, because the Twitter bird's name was Larry.
I know. I don't know. I didn't know what was the deal with the change? I like that he bought it. That was cool at the time. Now I don't even know. Now everything's too politicized. I can't have an opinion. I'm scared to have an opinion on anything. Someone gets pissed off, and no matter what you think. So I just don't think.
Well, there is a very controversial topic when it comes to music. Singles versus albums.
Now this we can talk about with anybody getting too mad.
Yes.
Well, I don't think it really matters anymore, because whether you like it or not, it's going to be singles, because labels will no longer invest in full records, and artists can't afford to. It's just not doable, because we put out our last album, Hotel California, came out 2 years ago. And it was probably our last full length. We might release, what we'll do is release a series of singles and package it at the end, mainly for Europe, because Europeans still want to own a physical product. But they don't even make cars anymore with CD players. Like, new cars don't have, it's just not. And
they're fighting to try and keep radios in cars.
I know. It's
which to me is really crazy, but just for like the zombie prepper in me, the idea of losing that immediate connection to the outside world is weird to me.
I don't like it. I used to love buying a CD. I would buy a CD whenever I had $20, and I would read the insert. I would read the thank yous because it was $20. You'd read everything in the insert. I'd read all the lyrics in there. I was bummed out when they didn't put the lyrics in there, because I'd have to figure it out on my own. It was an event getting it.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, everything has become less of a commodity, and now it's just kind of, it's sad, but unfortunately, like for people who like that stuff, there's nothing you can do. No one watches music videos. Everybody wants these 15-second TikTok videos, so labels don't want to pay for real music videos anymore. And it sucks, because the truth is, no matter what, if you're in a band or if you're in a record label, it's not even there. You have to play by the rules of the consumer. You can't play by unless you run a charity case and you just want to do whatever you want to do. Like one guy who doesn't like Ronnie from Falling, he'll spend a fortune on a music video because he doesn't care. He wants a good music video, and he can do that. And more power to him. I respect the hell out of it. But most people aren't in a position to be able to do that. You know what I mean? So if you're in a band, I watched a really interesting interview with Matt Shadows from Avenged Sevenfold. Really smart dude, very cerebral guy, and knows a lot about the music industry. And he was talking about touring, and he was like, yeah, we're not like probably going to do regular tours anymore. We're just going to do like one-off festival type things, because we can't tour the way we want to tour and make money anymore, and like tour and put on the show we want, and it's not financially feasible anymore because touring's become so expensive. It's all doubled. Everything's doubled. Bus prices, everything.
Oh yeah, and everybody's out on the road right now. So even if you can find a bus to get,
we missed a whole European tour because we couldn't get a bus, which is insane. So it's changed this whole marketplace. It's not just the singles and the records. The whole industry is like morphing, and it sucks because you can't do the things that you want to do. And it has nothing to do with like his viewpoint was like, unless you could put on the show you want to put on, I'd rather not. do a show. It wasn't even about making money. It was about being able to put the product forward. Those guys take a lot of pride in what they do. They can't do that. So we're not going to do it. And we're not going to do what we can't. You know what I mean? And I understand that. So it makes the whole situation difficult. And with the music thing, the singles versus record thing, you want to, with the photos and the da-da-da-da, no one cares. It's like, so you take all this time to, do the artwork and come up with these concepts and these things that no one cares about. And it's like, all right, well, I guess that's a thing of the past. Only people stream it. And then like Spotify's like, well, unless someone streams a certain amount of the song, it's not even a stream. So you have to like, now they're like, hey, our labels, I'm not even kidding. We don't do any of this. We get in a lot of trouble for this stuff. We've been dropped like 1 million times for doing stuff like this. They want to, you need to start your song with a chorus, no matter what. No musical intros anymore. Because you have to hook them in the first 15 seconds. Because if they don't listen past 30 seconds, it's not a stream. And we'll go, no, we're not doing that because we're not going to dictate our song format. It doesn't matter. This stuff is all becoming real. It's all being dictated by how the consumer listens to music. So it's like, it's not what artists want to do or the bands want to do. It's not even necessarily what labels want to do. It's what people consume. And we're victims of what people want.
But then they're always looking for different stuff, though, because everything you're talking about, then explain Sleep Token. They're releasing 7-minute songs with saxophone solos.
Right.
And radio for a long time was like off the last record, they're like, I don't know. And I went and saw them in a club.
Right.
Because I heard the buzz and I was like, I want to see if this is legit or not. Or if they're just hitting play on a tape out back and it's all just fake. And I went and saw them and I called like 4 different radio people I know from around the country. And I was like, you got to play this band. It's real. These guys are really playing. The crowd, I watched them sell merch 2 hours after the club closed because the merch line went back outside. And I'm like, this is real. And so
there's still a hunger for it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? There's people that are still out there. So there's always going to be a marketplace. Like I said, like they'll still always package records like vinyl. That's what vinyl is. It's for these people who still want a real product and still care. There's always going to be people like that. And the other thing I will say too is everything works in a circular fashion. Everything comes and goes and stuff. So when things go out of fashion, that certainly doesn't mean they're not going to come back and that these things won't come back again. But being in a band in particular is about adaptation. And I'm sure the radio is the same way, like podcasting. Everything, formats just change. Doesn't mean your job changes what you're doing. The way you have to do it changes. And so for record labels have to adapt. They resisted forever. They did not want to go to streaming. But eventually it became too powerful and they had to. And bands have to respond to that thing. And you have to respond to how radio is shifting towards a satellite or whatever. I don't know the ins and outs of radio, so I'm not going to.
If I were doing this radio, if I were interviewing you on the radio, the label guy, the manager, and my boss would have all been standing there staring at us.
And I can't talk about cocaine.
Maybe on my show you could because I never followed those rules. But it would have been plug the shows.
Right.
Plug the record. And then there would have been room for like 1 or 2 questions about all the cool stuff you and I have already talked about, right?
Right.
And so you would do the interview for the radio, and then as an afterthought, you would put the whole thing up as a podcast on the website that like nobody even cared about. Now I do the interviews for the podcast and pull the pieces out for the radio, and and in my opinion, the interviews are way better.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we're talking about real stuff. And the whole reason I started my podcast was because I wanted the listeners to get to know you guys the way that I get to know you at those dinners and backstage at shows, and to hear the conversations about growing up and the music and where to get the best tacos in LA. We never would have had time to do these interviews if we did it the other way around.
I hated the other way.
Me too.
Yeah.
I hated having to make you guys drive across downtown Boston traffic to come on my show live and then to get stuck and be late for sound check on the way back.
I like that part.
But I love the idea that you're bored as shit backstage at a show and you're like, we can talk about whatever you want.
Yeah, no, I love the podcasting thing. Is there's a lot of great things that have come through this whole formation, in particular podcasting. Dude, I've learned so much from podcasts that I would have never known just in general about life. Like I love Rogan because he has the most, some of the people on there are nuts. Some of them aren't, but just random pieces of information. He has this guy, Peter Attia. He's like, he talks about longevity. He's a longevity doctor. He talked, I got really interested and I bought his book. It's about how to live a really fucking long time, basically, and all this stuff. And I started following this health protocol, and I've never felt better in my life. I would have never known who this dude was. And then, some of them are like, some guy was on there talking about all the different strains of mushrooms, then how they get you high, and they're different. Some of them are lame. The Terrence Howard episode was one of the craziest things I've ever heard, and inverted math, but it's interesting.
I like the archaeologist and like all of the Egyptologists.
Yeah,
because
that's
these
awesome.
are all the unanswered questions that even the most hardlined, educated scholars are still trying to answer these questions.
And those guys are never going to ask the right questions because they're paid by colleges not to. Like you don't get grants if you ask like certain questions. That's the way that stuff works. You know what I mean? So the education system wants you're supposed to come to the same conclusion. They don't care how you get there, but the conclusion has to stay the same. They don't want those conclusions to change from the books, from what they teach. So like you get an alternate viewpoint where those conclusions can change. Whether they're right or wrong is up for debate, but you get an open form of discussion. It's not about if they're right or wrong. You can agree or disagree, but it's just, that's what I love about it is I've listened to people on there and be like, this guy's so full of shit. And I've listened to guys on there and been like, dude, this is fascinating. But you could never do that in any other world than this one. That was not available. Like, unless you knew how to get some obscure piece of it. But these guys couldn't get their books published back, and even, how the hell would you know if they did? You couldn't go out to Barnes & Noble and buy them. I could tell you that. So it's like, unless maybe some weird internet forum or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like Reddit. I have no idea. So that's what I love about it. There are a lot of good things that have come from all of this. And then another thing I love about it with streaming is I came in the music industry and it was really, really hard to get your music heard because the only way was to get signed to a label. That was it. Unless that was the only way as far as I knew anyway. Getting
being
signed
an independent artist and like getting on the radio or going on a big tour was near impossible.
Dude, if you didn't have money in some form or another, it was. So we got signed to Interscope, which was, almost an impossible feat for us. That included quite a bit of luck. And that's how we were able to get the band out there or whatever. There was a million of bands just like us that didn't get that lucky. So now at least these guys can put their music out there and and if you're good, people will find out in the court of public opinion. If you suck, okay, well, that sucks. But if you have something to say, you can say it and people can listen to it. You can at least do the work to make people listen to it. You have that option. If you're a hustler, you can get people to listen to your music. Whereas before, no matter what you did, you needed Joe Schmo to say, okay, fine, I'll let people hear you. And that's the thing about streaming. And it's taken a lot from artists that were signed. Yeah, dude, everybody makes less money because the whole pie has been spread across a lot further. But to me, it's worth it because the survival of the music industry is impingent upon artists that no one was ever going to hear of being hurt, or otherwise it was just going to stay. It was going to be the same shit over and over and over again. And granted, the major labels are always going to put out cookie cutter crap. That's just the way it is. The pop music, the rap music,
going on forever,
and it always will.
Yeah.
But at least now you can go and find out about some independent dude. And also the other thing I love is I go look up some obscure Beatles song and listen to it whenever I want. Oh man, remember that song from Bruce Springsteen? Oh, I'm gonna go listen to it. Those things are great. Yeah, people in the business make less money, labels make less money, artists make less money, but at least it's a fair trade thing and people can judge whether something's good, something's not. And if you're a young kid, you're 15 years old, you can put your music online and people can listen to it if they want to listen to it. And you go hand out flyers, you can do whatever you want and get people to actually hear your music. So there is some good that came from it, at least.
I talked to the Barry Tomorrow guys last week, and we were talking about how risque it was for a label to sign and promote Sabbath 55 years ago, because it was like the most taboo stuff ever. And now 55 years later, they're getting ready to have this big, giant kind of send-off thing and getting kids now to understand how dangerous a band like Zeppelin or Sabbath, getting a label to sign them and stand behind the craziness. Like, that was not mainstream acceptable back then. That was scary, rebellious.
There was picket lines.
Yes.
Like, people were like, this is devil music. They weren't kidding when they said it. They meant it.
Yes.
They really believed their kids were possessed.
Yeah.
No, and you have to give it to those labels back then that really did, you know, that music would never have seen the light of day unless some lawyer had the balls to do it. Frank Zappa talked about that, how back in the day he preferred the A&R guys because they were just guys trying to make money. They didn't have any. Nowadays, they were just dudes with money who saw a product and tried to make money off of it. Now it's a bunch of old musicians who think they know what to do with your music. And he hated that. Frank Zappa hated it. A&R guys come in, oh, what if you did this with the bass line instead of that?
Can you imagine having the balls as being that guy telling Frank Zappa what to do? Yeah,
he hated it. No, I know. The irony of it is the music industry is a bunch of failed musicians telling aspiring musicians how to become successful. Most of these guys, managers and these people, are all guys who were in bands who didn't succeed in bands, now telling you how to be successful. Oh, I don't know about this third chorus. It's like, what the fuck do you know? You didn't write a fucking chorus? Why are you telling me, dude? Yeah, I hate it. It's so annoying. Before it was just about the commercial product. You're dealing with basically attorneys who wanted to make money. And in order for them to make money, you made money. It was a good little shindig, you know? But now, yeah, it's a bunch of wannabe, in that Wu-Tang song, who's your A&R? A mountain climber who plays an electric guitar in that one rap song. This was back in 93, but it was such a good line because that's really what it is. I remember going to Interscope and meeting our A&R agents and stuff, and they were we were like a hard-edge band. We did drug. We were like, and these guys were like the dorkiest hipster Subaru driving guy. They lived in Echo Park. It's like, when do you guys talk about this? It's like, what? Who are you? You're a dork. You know what I mean? It's like, it's terrible. But now you really, I mean, dude, now you can be an independent artist and you can be successful because of things like Spotify. A lot of artists trash Spotify, and I get it. They want more money for their streams and stuff.
The thousandth of a cent a stream is a little outrageous.
Yes, they need to pay more to their artists, and I agree with that. But give credit where it's due. At least you have a forum where you can put your music out and have people listen to it. There is a trade-off there. And Spotify does need to pay their artists more. So does Apple Music and Amazon Music. All of them need to pay their artists more. I don't know what Spotify's worth, but I know the guy who runs it's a billionaire. It's dude, you have money. Yeah, there's plenty of money to go around. You should pay people more. But it's a great thing for artists. As long as those things are worked out, it can end up being a great thing for everybody. Of course, greed always comes into play, but, you know, the artists need to be compensated, especially young guys. Because, dude, if you're a young dude in a band, I know bands that, like, they tour and you might think, oh, you know, that those guys, they can't even.
They're living off per diem and and 7 guys lucky. To a hotel room, and it's hard.
It's poverty. They live in poverty, and when they go home, they have to go, you know, paint houses. They can't make music because they, you know, and it really is. And I did it for years and years and years, and it sucks because, most guys I know in bands, they're not sitting there thinking like I'm going to become a rich guy. You know, that's very few and far between. Most of them are just trying to make a living, and they can't. You know what I mean?
Doing what they love.
Yeah, and they just want to do what they love, and they want to be able to do it and live and not, you know, live in poverty and eat top ramen all the time. Even though top ramen is delicious, it doesn't have a lot of nutrients.
Yeah, it's not good for you.
They don't want to get fucking scurvy like a pirate or whatever the fuck. So they need some vitamin C, you know. So, you know, most guys in bands, none of them are under the illusion. This isn't the 80s where they're going to be like, I'm going to get a Ferrari. They just want to live and be able to make music. And so Spotify should up their game, certainly.
That's why I love what I do, because I have no musical ability. So I'm not a failed musician trying to have an opinion on your music. I'm someone that's so envious of your musical ability. I just want to climb around in your brain and see how it works. Because my rock star clarinet days ended in the marching band in high school.
Well, if it makes you, I'm envious of other most musicians that I like. I'm like, how did he do that? That son of a bitch. I'm just as envious. It's just of somebody else. We're all envious. Musicians are the most jealous group of girls.
There's always going to be somebody, right? Like you're like, oh, I play bass. Okay, there's Geddy Lee. Fuck my life. Okay, like there's always going to be someone.
When you hear a song and you just go, what really trips me out is when I hear a song and I don't get like how they did it. Like there's songs that are really good. You go, oh, I see what he did there. That was really good. But with like, who NF is?
Yeah.
He's like a rapper, dude. He comes out with this stuff and I'll listen to it and it's like beyond my scope of understanding how he does it. I'm just like, how? And that's what drives me crazy. It's beyond my comprehension level. And it makes me want to choke that motherfucker.
Did you watch that Beatles documentary? And you're watching Paul McCartney write the song, but you know how it goes, and he hasn't gotten there yet. And you're sitting there watching his brain work, and I'm like, oh my God, he doesn't even know where he's going yet, but it's so good when he gets there.
They're so genius, dude. The fact that they wrote that amount of material in that short a period of time just shows you where they were at mentally is like beyond the scope of understanding. One of the greatest things about the Beatles is how simple everything sounds, but when you sit down to try and play, you're like, dude, this is really complex. It's not easy, but it sounds easy. That's what made them so like unique is like the chords are hard and they're like not normal. And you're like, what the fuck is this? And you realize it's much more complex, but it sounds simple. You know what I mean? It was like,
they're my favorite band, and I nerd out with guests on the show all the time about the Beatles. I watched that Rick Rubin documentary that he did with Paul McCartney. And Paul McCartney said something on there, and I felt like such an idiot because I never put the two and two together. But he said the magic of the Beatles was that Paul McCartney grew up in a happy, traditional home.
Yeah.
And that John Lennon came from a broken home. And so there was McCartney's happy lyrics and Lennon's cynical music, or Paul McCartney's happy music and Lennon's cynical lyrics. And when he broke it apart like that with Rick Rubin, I just sat there and then I went back and listened to all my favorite songs and I was like, he's absolutely right. That's what it is, that John Lennon will say the most sad, depressing things. And there's that McCartney melody that's just so happy and sing-song, and it doesn't make any sense that it works, but it does.
It's the juxtaposition.
Yes.
You know what the greatest twist with the Beatles was that the whole time George was hidden.
Oh.
The brilliance of George Harrison never came out until after, and you're like, you're telling me we could have had that too?
Can you imagine being the third wheel in your band and you're George Harrison?
Because the post-Beatles stuff, George, in my opinion, George's was the best. And that could have been a part of it too. And that, like, so you really start to go, oh my, like the talent level is just, it's unbelievable. I'm still sad about, because George, he seemed to have the best, like, head on his shoulders, like the most even keeled and down to earth dude. And, obviously he was really young when he passed away. And that is the most upset is I would have loved to have seen, because I know Lennon died real young too, but Lennon had a big repertoire of music. Harrison didn't. And I would have really, of course,
where was he going? What was going
what was going to come from this dude?
Yeah.
And that, because he didn't get as much output. And of course it's sad, no matter how you chop this thing up with all of them, but the fact that Harrison never got the full to explore it as much as Lennon did. And obviously McCartney's been going forever and just seems to be like have no end in sight. He looks like a kid still. He's the glow and that
guy's got avocado ice cream.
Yeah, that guy, someone cast a spell on that dude and said, dude, because he's so vibrant and he's, I hope I have that kind of like lust for life, because I don't, well, actually, I know I won't, because I didn't have it when I was fucking 6 and he's like 80. And I was already depressed when I was 6. I was like, fuck this park fucking sucks. And he's still having a good time, so I'm fucked. But
well, he grew up though, like we were just saying, like in that positive environment where he was nurtured and loved, and he kind of grew up. Meanwhile, there's his best pal John Lennon. Like, this park sucks, everything fucking sucks.
But that's where the magic really came from. It's bizarre, but it's true. No, I mean, yeah, the Beatles, and I would never argue with you that they're the greatest band in history. What really annoys me is when people, if they're not your favorite band, that's okay. But when people say the Beatles are overrated, it makes me want to really
I end the
smack someone
conversation
silly.
and just walk away because
No,
I'm like,
it's so
you obviously
stupid.
don't know what you're talking about.
No, it's dumb. If anything, they're underrated even by the people who love them because there's so much depth there that people don't understand. Wait, go try and play a Beatles song. Learn guitar and go try and play a Beatles song. Go listen to Paul's bass lines and find out how deep those things run, and you'll find out how deep this stuff really goes, or the harmonies and stuff like that. Because if you're just listening at the surface, you haven't even started yet.
And they were in their 20s, made all that music in 7.5 years, and then they were gone.
Yeah, like that. It's insane. The Beatles, it's such a tragic story.
I know.
It bums me out.
When we talk about like, growing up and being weird and whatever, I just tell people this is what happens when you're allowed to listen to the White Album on 8-track when you're a kid. I was not destined to be an accountant. My mom gave me access to her Beatles collection, which I still have, the original vinyls and stuff. And it's like, you can't listen to the White Album when you're an impressionable little kid and then think you're going to grow up and be like the head cheerleader because it just doesn't work.
Well, I have another theory. I think you were destined to be what you were before the White Album. I think if you were an accountant and you heard the White Album, it wouldn't affect you the same way. I think people are like, they have that in them ahead of time. I think some people are touched by things that are not. And if you were born, you were already going to be an accountant or something like that, and you heard the White Album, you'd be like, oh, whatever. Because there are people who are not touched by those things, and they have their own little path to walk and stuff. But I think you were you before the White Album. You just knew you were you when you heard it, kind of thing.
My favorite toy growing up when they bought me a tape recorder, a cassette recorder, and I had a little microphone, and I used to go around the house and like interview.
So you already knew you were you. You just found a tool.
It was so weird that when you go back and look at, like, wow, did you really? And then where did that come from? Because no one in my family did anything with a microphone.
Well, I'm a spiritual person. I believe that's like the soul. That's who you really are. You know what I mean? That's the way that's my theory anyway. I think like you were probably that person, then you just found a tool to express it. And when you found the White Album, that part of you was already there. You just found something that showed you it or shined a light on it or whatever. You know what I mean? People are different in that way and stuff. And sometimes you find things in the world that you're like, oh, and you respond to them because it's already a part of you. You just found a counterpoint to it, as opposed to like it teaching you who you are. You were already that thing. You just found a matching point for it.
I had to find a way or a place to ask all these questions because when I pepper my husband with them, it drives him crazy.
Oh, I love philosophy. I love it. Dude, you should go read.
I took a few classes in college, and it was one of those things where I was like, I think I need to get high before class because I might understand it better. Because I'm such a logical, analytic person that it was just like my brain is cramping right now, having these existential conversations about.
Dude, that's like my favorite thing in the world. You should read some Schopenhauer, dude. Smoke a joint and read some Schopenhauer or some Nietzsche or something. And be like, well, fuck me.
I'm never coming out of the basement ever again. You could blame Johnny Three Tears. It's all his fault.
It is. I'd be very happy to take the blame for that problem.
Well, you're going to be up in New England. You're going to be in Providence May 7th. You're going to be in New Haven, Connecticut May 8th on the tour with Tech Nine. So you guys are around. And then
we're in the area.
Yeah, you're going to be in the area. New England's not that big. We drive.
Yeah.
And then obviously Hollywood Forever. We're playing a lot on my show in Portland, Maine on the Bone. So
very happy with that.
Yeah, there's a lot
I love Portland, Maine. What a beautiful little town.
Dude, Portland's badass, man. I know. Being on the air there, I spend a lot of time there, and it's just a cool place to hang out.
That's a place that we were talking about earlier, like a place where people don't really know about it. They always go to, New York or Chicago. Like that's where you should. A place like that, you're going to have those little secrets of the world. You know what I mean? You're going to have much more fun finding out about those places than going to a place to Paris or something.
Tim Montana was reading real estate listings in Portland for months after he played there the first time. He's like, this city is fucking great.
It's great. And you know what's funny is playing there is we don't have big shows there. We play probably 800, 900 people there. And it's not a big town. It's, but they're fun. Like that, the kids go nuts. It's always a great time playing there. The atmosphere is great. We always have fun. It's got a great vibe. So I'm a big fan.
You're playing Providence, you're playing New Haven, and then you're doing a couple of the biggest festivals in North America.
Yeah.
What is your favorite festival memory watching another band versus performing on the stage?
Oh, dude, I remember this because when we first started, we were young guys, and we played a festival in Tempe. I don't even know if it's still there. And I actually forget. This is 2006 or something. Long time ago. I'm a huge Korn fan. Still am.
Too.
Huge
Me
Korn
too.
fan. Yes. Amazing band. And we played a festival and Korn was playing. And even just seeing them, like they were walking through the hallways, I was like, I didn't say anything, but I was, tripping. And of course, because we're playing, we just walked onto the side of the stage. And I was like, I can just stand here and watch them. And they're like, yeah. I was like, so I can just stay here. They're like, yeah. Because I was just like, this is like the trippy. It was the most insane thing in the world to me to be able to do that. Because I'd never been backstage at a show, let alone standing on the side of the stage. And I just watched Korn play to 20,000 people or whatever. The sun's going down. I'm like 20 feet from them. And I was like, it's something I'll always remember because I had never even had an experience like that, let alone played with the show. Our show was like 5 hours before, but that wasn't inconsequential. But just to be able to sit there and the sun was going down and watch Korn play, it was just one of those things where I was like, I did not see that coming. And that one will always stick out for me because I think that was the first festival we ever played. And then to watch that was, one of those things I'll remember when I'm dead or
Watching
dying.
a show from the side of the stage for somebody like me that's not a musician to just give me a glimpse of what we look like to you guys on stage is so freaking cool because when you're in the crowd, you feel like you're this anonymous face. But
Right.
when you're up on the stage looking out, there are a significant number of rows where you can look in the person's eyes.
Oh, yeah, dude. No, yeah, you can see people's pores if you look hard enough. It's like, you want to hear, I'll tell you a funny festival story real quick before we go. We were in Japan. There was a festival called Summer Sonic, and we were playing with the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And when we were playing, there was wires at the front of the stage, and someone didn't tape them down. And my foot got caught, and I fell off the stage onto my knee, and my knee shattered. I had to go to the hospital. We were in Japan. My whole knee exploded. It was disgusting. It was like a mountain. So I go to the hospital. We're in Japan. I had to go to the hospital. They drained it, and there wasn't a lot they could do. We had to go back to the States the next day. So they did all this stuff they could do. They drained it. They gave me some shots, cortisone shots, and wrapped it and all this stuff. And they gave me a wheelchair. So we go back to me, my tour manager, and two guys in the band go back to the festival. And I'm on all these pills, whatever they gave me, I was all popped up. And they're like, oh, what do you want to do? I was like, well, might as well watch Red Hot Chili Peppers. And so I'm in this wheelchair. So Red Hot Chili Peppers have a strict no side stage thing, except for their family. But they let me and two of the guys in the band because I was in this wheelchair. So they wheeled me out, and I'm next to the family, the wives, girlfriend. I don't even know who these people are. And so the drummer, I think he thought I was special needs. He thought I had some issue. And so he's looking over at me and he's going like this at me. And I'm just smiling back. And he's going like this at me, trying to get my attention. He was throwing me drumsticks and stuff. And I think he just thought I was some special case or something like that. And I still have all these drumsticks he tossed me. He had no idea I was the one I played earlier and that I just busted my knee. He thought I was I had won some maybe
you were a
meet
Make-A-Wish
the chili
kid.
pepper. Yeah, Make-A-Wish kid. And it was the best thing in the world because I got to watch them. And this was in Osaka, Japan or something like that. But I got to watch them just because I broke my knee. So it was a good thing on that one. They also gave me a bunch of suppositories, Vicodin-based suppositories, because that's how they do it over there. So on the flight back, me and the whole band were just going to the bathroom and using them, and it was not pretty.
A flight to Japan is a very long flight.
It wasn't long on the way back because we were using those.
I'm impressed you were able to insert them in the bathrooms that are that small. That's some serious
we had help. We were doing them
contortionist.
to each other.
Of course
Not really,
you were. See, that's the kind of stuff that never would have come out on the radio show.
No, yeah. Well, that's not true, by the way. The guys' butts are too hairy. I couldn't do that. That's disgusting. I've seen all of their butts, and no. They'd have to get a Brazilian wax.
Trust me, sometimes it's not easy being a heterosexual woman, okay? I get it.
I do not blame women at all for not. I don't know how you guys do it. It's disgusting. I look at myself, I'm like, you're revolting. You should thank God that your wife is attracted to you because you're a hairy, disgusting pig.
I hope my husband's listening to this right now.
Yeah, it's true, dude. I'm shocked that anything could want to sleep in the same bed with us.
When's the next time you're coming to Boston? You got the tour dates in Providence and Connecticut. Then you got all the festivals. What's the rest of 2025 and 2026 look like for Hollywood Undead?
I know we have a bunch of European stuff coming up. The next U.S. run, I actually don't know. We've been Europe, and we have like a bunch of Australia, going overseas a lot. But hopefully soon. I honestly, if I had an answer, I'd tell you. But hopefully sooner rather than later. We did Boston we were with the High Prevalent Hailstorm there, I think, over the last summer. So it's been a while. We haven't done a headline there in a long time. So hopefully soon. I think the last time we headlined there was with Cypress Hill, and that was 1920. So it's been a while, pre-COVID. So hopefully soon.
The Mistress Carrie Tour of Boston. The invite is open.
I will absolutely take you up on that.
It was so good to see you. Thank you for spending so much time with me. I hope I passed some of your boring afternoon time away for you.
Oh no, it's been my pleasure, and it was a lot of fun. I love this is a lot more fun than the old way of listen 89. Blah, blah. I used to do those things. I sucked at them.
Talk about the record and shut up.
No, it's been great. I had a lot of fun.
It was good to see you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And I'll hit you up before we get to Boston or something. We'll figure it out, and we would love to do it.
Dude, I would love to take you.
All right, Carrie.
See you later.
Thank you. Bye.
There he is, Johnny Three Tears from Hollywood Undead. Keep requesting Hollywood Forever on your favorite rock station. And you can go see Hollywood Undead and Tech 9 out on the road right now. 2 stops in New England, the Strand in Providence, Rhode Island, May 7th, and at the College Street Music Hall in New Haven, Connecticut on May 8th. Get the link to get tickets in the show notes of this episode. You'll also find the link to this episode's corresponding playlist. I make a playlist for every full-length episode of the Mistress Carrie podcast that features my guest music and all the artists and songs that we talked about in the interview. You'll also find Johnny's links, the Hollywood Undead links, and of course, the Mistress Carrie links. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and comment on the Mistress Carrie podcast. New full-length episodes come out every Wednesday. Plus, every weekday, you get the Sit Rep. The Situation Report breaks down all of your rock news, music headlines, and entertainment updates in around 5 minutes. And you never know when we're going to release a bonus episode. Join me live every Tuesday night at 8:30 Eastern on my official Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, and YouTube for my weekly streaming video show, Cocktails in the War Room. And you can always hear me on the radio. Get the details on all of that and more at MistressCarrie.com. The Mistress Carrie Podcast, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network.